what are we going to do to build our muscles up and our bone density and most of all lower the body fat? So what I did is today is our sports science day. And what we do is make sure that we go behind the scenes on knowing how to actually nurture your body in a way that you can really get the most out of your training. If you look at athletes like Terrence Crawford, Canelo Alvarez, regardless of if he lost, he looked tremendous in that fight. And I'm speaking to Canelo Alvarez. If you go look at that physique the day of the weigh-in, because unlike boxing used to, they are doing what they do in tradition with the ceremonial weigh-ins. So when you see the fighter at that point, his weight is already settling back in. Canelo had already put in maybe 8 pounds to 10 pounds since that morning weigh-in that they had. But how do you measure your actual validity as an athlete when you're going up? So yesterday I took a couple of guys, one being my son and another boxer, on a run. And what they experience is that they learn that there's just levels of how you go about training your body. You just don't go outside and run. There's understanding what training zones, lower heart rate, target heart rate, and then high intensity levels. How long do you go in each phase in order to optimize the VO2 max, right? So they went through just a pendulum of recovery time. All of those things are measured. And when you understand when you're gonna how long you have to recover, that means you have a set goal to beat every time that you go run. So therefore you're more motivated to run. And when it was all said and done, they did their runs. They both ended up learning that if you do it in a way that you really maximizing your conditioning, that you're going to get cramps. But then here's another thing that I want you to remember as people who, oh, everybody wants to improve their body. So I'm going to tell you 3 different things that you have to pay close attention to. But before I get started, I have to introduce myself. My name is Eric A. Bradley, coach that is. And for 4 decades, I've taught boxing. I've been in over 40 world champion training camps. I have actually 3 world champions on my board right now. And we have a podcast that's really crazy cool, The Fight Show. But what I treasure most about what I've done is created an online fight school. And most of the people that come into it are either trainers or fighters who are trying to elevate and get the blueprint on how to actually train to win at the highest level of boxing. We coach and mentor. I just had uh, Jake Paul's coach on our show, and he's now gone up into our school, learned some things. And these individuals who are in the world of combat and sports performance are in our circle and for the right reasons because we have to feed each other knowledge and experiences that we all have. Now, with that being said, I want you guys to understand the clear phases of knowing what you need to do. It's the main reason I took liberty to not write one book on how to do it, but I've written over 10 books, 20 books, now over 30 books on how to develop as an athlete and someone who's in the world of boxing consistently, if that's your profession. And without being said, we've done over 300 champions now so far in less than 10 years. So that's a big deal to me. So you're talking to someone that really has credibility. Now on to the next thing. When you're training, here are the 3 phases that you must train in. One is understanding what should your muscle mass be for your frame, right? Your muscle mass is all determined on how you actually are staturally built. If you have a very wide shoulder girdle, then you are more likely to put on more weight because there's more diameter to spread the weight around. If you are someone that's more narrow, you have to be careful or you'll end up with the pear shape, meaning your weight will end up being in the center. So you won't have the base. Now, if you're someone that's long and tall, wide in the hips, another thing that allows you to gain more weight. So here are the things that I suggest. Your muscle mass will be based on your shape. We have endomorph, ectomorph, and meso. All right. Each one of those are the endo is a heavier person. Meso is a mix of both, and ecto is a person that's slim. All right. Snoop Dogg. All right. You got muscle, but you're super slim. All right. Meso is a mix between the two. You got great bodies, but you have to eat right. You have to make sure that you don't consume too much, and you got to definitely minimize your carbohydrate intake. And then the person who is that total person that really will need to pay close attention to their body is the endomorph, right? They cannot allow themselves to get overweight because it just can go crazy. So you just think about that. Now, how much muscle mass do you need? A person that's an ecto muscle mass, ecto frame, can build more muscle mass because they're skinny, right? I'm a skinny frame, so I can build a lot of muscle mass. So once you understand how to measure your muscle mass and how much do you need, then you think about guys like Evander Holyfield. He was a skinny guy and he was able to add a lot of muscle. But when you have someone, let's just say, for instance, a person that is thick and already like Mike Tyson, he's shorter, but he's thick. He can get up to over 300 pounds. He's done it a multitude of times. You got to be careful with those kind of guys. That's a meso, right? That person, they needs to be on a good balanced diet, and they need good activity so that they understand that their bodies need to just be refined consistently. They can never go to sleep on it because you can see them one day, they look tremendous, and the next day, boom, they've gained 14 pounds. You look at Canelo Alvarez, guy can gain 20 pounds in just a day, right? So, but when you think about the endo, they cannot afford to gain much mass at all, right? They have to most of the time lose weight, all the time, pretty much, because they already are born with a lot of density and a lot of mass. So their problem isn't gaining mass. Those sumos, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, guys who are just naturally big already, and if they didn't work out tremendously, then they'd be really obese. All right, so these are the three areas you got to really concentrate on with your muscle mass. Muscle mass is important. The next area you want to be very, very cognizant of is your body fat. Body fat is going to vary, like I said, between each and every one of those individuals, right? You have to know how much running to do. If you are an endomorph, that means an overweight person, you want to train in a very low heart rate zone when you're running and getting your cardiovascular, because now you're burning fat down, right? If you don't, what's going to happen is you're going to lose more muscle and you're going to have a much more pronounced pear shape. So if you have a pear shape right now, then slow down your running. Understand your training zone, your rest and heart rates. Make sure that you're eating enough protein, balance enough, lower those carbohydrates, and make sure you increase that fat because your brain needs it. Your body will fuel off of it instead of needing carbohydrates. And then, as I break down the meso, good balance. See, that person is always about good balance. I'm an ecto, my brother's a meso. That means he can get over 200 pounds. He got a lot of weight in his lower body. His bones are extremely dense. And you got to be careful with those individuals because they can look good and be totally out of shape. So those are some characteristics when you talk about a mesomorph. Now, the third and last one, but not least, is the individual that actually is skinny. They can hide body fat, and sometimes you can call them skinny fat. But the key is understanding when you're dealing with those individuals, They need protein. They need to build that muscle because they can afford to. They can add on more muscle than anybody else. And still, like I can put on 15 pounds of muscle and still wear the same clothes that I wear for the most part. Now, there are some t-shirts that'll get too tight, but for the understanding of how empowering it is to know what your body can do and what it should be doing, then understand what body type you have. And this is all about recruitment of muscle mass, knowing how much you should actually do. Now, the third component in grabbing onto something when it comes down to your anatomy is knowing exactly what you need to do when it comes down to bone density. The bone density is so important, people, and you don't pay attention to it. You can have a bone density of 7.4, 6.9, 6.8. I've had people with bone density as low as 6.2. You can believe they're going to suffer from osteoporosis. Blonde hair, blue eyes, they're expected to have weak bones. But bone density is everything, and you have to pay attention to it. In the same way that I took my guys out on a run yesterday and explained every facet of physical training, things that you never hear whenever you're just training at a gym or training on your own. I bring those things front and center, and whenever you can really sit down and say, explain to me exactly what I need to do and exactly what training zone I need to be in and how long should I actually be doing these physical workouts, how much weight training should I do, because all of those things are variable in developing your body. When you have people who are ecto, meso, and endomorph, you have to know what lane you are in. But as you get older, your body changes so much, you don't know if you actually are an ecto anymore. You don't know if you're a meso anymore because you're just out of shape. So if you're out of shape, this is definitely something you need to listen to so that you can now start checking boxes and doing it with refined training. Sometimes you want to overtrain your body. That doesn't mean you're going to be in better shape. It just means you better know how to eat and consume, because if you don't eat enough protein and you interfere with the development and the restoration of those muscles, that process is called muscular protein synthesis. And if you don't understand how to do this, you better, because when you start doing that, you start disrupting the entire body. And that's why you feel out of whack. So understanding the body, then you think about how can you measure all three, the body fat, the muscle mass, and the bone density, making sure that there are people that can walk around with a solid bone density of 7.8, 8.4, and even 9.4, 9.5. That is a tremendous dense bone. So knowing how to get there and measure those things, there's a body scan that you can actually use. For all of my people that are local down in South Florida, I love to come and let you try it out just to get a reading of all of those. Because when you're doing your body, you are your own athlete. You don't have to be Terrence Crawford or Canelo Alvarez, but what you do need is to understand what your numbers are and what body type you are so that you can start there and making sure you're getting the right macros, protein, fat, carbohydrate intake, knowing exactly what training zones that you need to be in, low intensity, which is your resting heart rate. Then that burns the most fat when you're burning in that zone. That's why it's okay to walk, even if you're an athlete. Next thing, target heart rate zone. Each of these are denominators. Subtract your age from 220. Your objective is to know your numbers. If not, you're just a walking time bomb waiting to happen. And then high intensity heart rate, right? Yesterday, those guys was in a 207 beats per minute zone. They couldn't go over that. If you go over that training zone, then you're out of it and you're going to expect to have cramps, and you will not be in a place where your body is feeding the proper glycogen stores being fed. It's so important that you know these little details. And it doesn't take you long to learn. It doesn't take you long to learn this when you hear it enough from your trainer. So if you don't have a trainer, then listen to your trainer, because right now I'm training you. And if you're in that place and you want to make sure that you're covering all these bases because you're tired of being yuck faced and out of sorts, then just continue to follow us for more. If you want to try a little running training program called Hybrid that really measures where you are and where you need to get to and what it'll take and how to get yourself to that pace, then just type the word hybrid down in the comment boxes and then start using that. That's on us. All right. Until next time, be blessed at God's speed. Stay healthy, stay fit, stay focused, stay locked in, motivate other people. And like I said, stay surrounded by people of faith, because that's how it's going to turn back around. What goes around comes around. You give, you receive. Be Bradley. We out of here. Peace out, guys.